In some other coaching news, guys, and this is a little bit more interesting. The Raiders hired former Ohio State offensive coordinator, college head coach before, Chip Kelly, as their new OC. He will now be one of, if not the highest paid offensive coordinator in football, Matthew. This is a high-variance hire, right?
Very
because we've
high
seen
variance.
Chip in the NFL. It kind of came in hot, fizzled out, goes back to college, which always seemed like a great fit for him. UCLA head coach. Obviously, the Ohio State offense was rolling this year. And now Chip is back in the NFL. We're a team that, they need some help on offense as well, but outside of Brock Bowers, the quarterback situation is up in the air. But this is a guy, Matthew, that brings a lot of new ideas to the table.
Yeah, he does. And he's got a head coach in Pete Carroll who is going to, I think, give him free reign. Pete usually comes from the defensive side of the ball. He's not going to be heavily involved in the offense. I think you don't hire a Chip Kelly unless you're like, here's the keys to the kingdom, do what you want. And Chip Kelly might be, to me, this is a much more interesting hire. Again, high variance, to your point, right? No. Because Chip Kelly may be a Norv Turner type, Robert Saleh type, which is like somebody who is like a great coordinator, but just might not be head coach material, right? I mean, and so it didn't work out as a head coach for Chip Kelly in the NFL, but I don't think anyone questions his offensive mind. And so without having to worry about all the BS that comes with being the head coach of an NFL franchise, and just worrying about the offense, I think it's an interesting hire.
Yeah. I'll never forget, to me, one of the random little defining moments of the NFL the past 2 decades is that first Chip Kelly year with Michael Vick, just the first drive of that primetime game where they march down the field basically immediately and they're snapping the ball with 29 on the play clock. And it's like, is this just a different sport now with the tempo? And then it just didn't fizzled out, didn't really work out. And then the San Francisco year was a disaster. He just didn't have the players. But do you think he's evolved as an offensive mind the past 9 years?
I do. And to something Matthew pointed out, sometimes guys are just better with more tunnel vision, narrow focus. He's calling the offense. He's working with the quarterbacks. This run game needs a lot of help. The offensive line is fine, I think, with the Raiders. He doesn't have to be the guy in front of the room. This will be Pete Carroll, the rah-rah energy guy, coaching the whole team.
Guy who has to deal with the press, has to deal with the owner, has to deal with the general manager.
Focus. Yes, and Chip Kelly is a creative play caller. And we saw it in Ohio State's offense with the 2 running backs they had. They have a lot of talent at wide receiver. He'll try different things, and he's not afraid to bring college concepts to the NFL. So I think if you're looking for even more ways to get Brock Bowers the ball in fantasy, you're actually feeling really good about this.
Right. And they have Jacoby Myers, who's a nice player as well. And
they'll add a wide receiver.
Yeah, they'll add a wide receiver. And so the other thing here is that, again, given the Raiders know they are not a year away. They are not in a position to draft a quarterback that can turn their fortunes around this year. And so it's going to be a multi-year rebuild. And so one way you compete quickly is a little bit of smoke and mirrors and a little bit of razzle-dazzle, which is something that Chip Kelly can bring. And I think having been in the NFL previously and all this stuff, we're going with a macrobiotic diet and all the, all sort of the BS,
the
I think.
Smoothie bar.
Right, the whole thing. I think he somewhat learned his lesson, right? And just here's stuff that does work in the NFL that you can do with NFL players. And here's stuff that you can't, that stuff that will work in college you can't necessarily translate to the pros when you've got players at a higher level where everyone on every roster is good, right? And they're not they're not scared 19-year-old kids.
Right.
These are professionals that are generally all making more than you are.
Something I like about this hire is this is somebody now for many years at the college level has been working with and developing young quarterbacks. Most recently this year, Will Howard, who will be in this draft. The Raiders are going to be drafting and developing a young quarterback, whoever that is. So you're getting somebody that has the familiarity right now out of college that says, okay, I know what we could do with this guy. I know what we can't do with this guy. I wonder if Will Howard will be in play for them as well. Like that, I like that strategy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do you think they are a day 2 quarterback guy? Because it feels a little bit, or do they try to trade back?
I think they'd love to get up and get Shedeur. I just don't know if they're going to have the opportunity to do it.
Right. So, do you think, are they like a day, there's talk maybe Milroe might drop to day 2.
He will.
Jackson Dart, Riley Leonard, one of these guys. Will Howard,
who we just coached.
Right.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of different quarterbacks, developmental quarterbacks taken on day 2. It's going to be Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I don't see another one going in the first round. It's been Jackson Dart hype week. This happens at the Senior Bowl every single week. But if the Raiders can't get up and get one of the top 2 guys, they'll take somebody on day 2 and allow them to develop.
And all the conversation you're hearing is that Tom Brady is very involved as a minority owner, and certainly I'm sure he's going to have an opinion about quarterback prospects.
Right, absolutely.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.